Thing is, many times we talk about skilling, we talk about hard skills. I can be a carpenter, I can be a builder, but we are in an era of soft skills.
Yeah.
There was a World Economic Forum report that was around 2020. At the World Economic Forum, they were talking about jobs of the future.
Yeah.
So what do the jobs of the future look like? And we continuously look at them as jobs of the future. But it's here with us today. We have so many people doing gigs, people who are influencers, and they earn from that.
This is the Policy Digest, a Center for Policy Analysis podcast that explores how African societies are governed and how people and their leaders are shaping the future of their communities. Through candid conversations and insightful analysis, we aim to provide a deeper understanding of the political, economic, and social landscape of Africa. So sit back, relax, and get ready to explore the diverse and dynamic world of African governance.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Policy Digest. This episode, we are going to have an interesting conversation around a nexus between how the youth voices have been represented, but also to speak to the livelihoods that affect the young people, and also basically to kind of draw our analysis into the civic power that the young people have either accumulated or they have not been given that space to hold that kind of civic power and embodiment in that they could speak out even when they feel uncomfortable in some spheres of their economic and cultural diversities. On the guest today, this episode today, we have someone who is distinguished. He's a friend of mine, and he's called Edgar Mwine. Maybe to give you a brief profile of Edgar Mwine. Edgar is the founder of a youth advocacy group called Youth Employment Support Uganda, abbreviated as YES-UG. And this organization has programs directed towards creating opportunities for decent employment for young people. Edgar is also a Huduma Fellow from the Lewo Africa Institute, and that is a values-based leadership organization that invests heavily in the future of the critical mass of young people through thoughtful, provoking workshops and innovations. Edgar is currently a programs manager to the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, which is a regional program around security dialogue for East Africa. Has managed security programs in countries numbering to 11, getting to the Horn of Africa, to East Africa, and the Sahel. Edgar, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and thank you for having me today.
We are talking something very critical at this point in time. This year, we had the census last year, 77% by UBOS statistics tell us that young people amount to, who are below 30 are 77% or 78% thereabouts. But then we really feel that they should be the bedrock of the country's future. And I would like to draw your short thoughts on that, even before we dig deeper into the discussion.
Thinking about it, so the age group you're talking about, people below 30. If today is 2025, we are talking about people who were born from 1995 upwards. So what challenges does this group of people face? Well, what opportunities are available for them? I usually like to say that Uganda has gone through stages. Post-independence, we had stages of turmoil and then political uncertainty until around 1986 when the NRM came to power. Whereas parts of the country were still insecure, the rest of the country was doing well, at least in many aspects.
Yeah.
So we are talking of people, 77% of the population that is born within the most successful period of the country. So you would assume that they have the best opportunities at everything. You would think that they would have the best education, the best healthcare systems, and the best chance at decent employment. But that is not exactly what is happening, and this has been outdone by a number of things. Either we did not see it coming, government and the private sector playing roles, different roles, but supportive roles in order to create jobs. The challenge is that there was a shift in the thinking in government.
Yeah.
The Museveni government thought there was no need for government to be doing business. So we privatized many of the government entities. And at the time, the population was growing so fast. So we have a population surge, and we do not have a very productive private sector. So it's just a mismatch of there's so many people, and then there are very few opportunities being created by the private sector, and government went out of business, so privatized businesses, and there was this talk of government has no business in doing business. So here we are with a huge population, but very few opportunities. But also, we have a lot more educated people. I think there are also advantages and outcomes from UPE and USE. So this universal free education, not exactly free, but accessible education has brought up very many people who are qualified, but they cannot find something meaningful to do.
Okay. Let us talk about the cost of living pressures, for example. And I know you have, for example, hinted about it when, for example, you say that there is a report that talks about half of the working Ugandans earning something like $6 a month. $60 a month. As regards to, and I still say the young people now, who, by, for example, a statistic, I think it is also the International Labour Organization that says 2/3, for example, of the young people across the globe are unable to get unemployment as compared to the older generation. What does that look like?
I think in looking at cost of living, it's not just about one not having a job.
Yeah.
The cost of living is just about how much do I have to spend in order to have meaningful life, to have self-sustenance. So talk of rent, transport, and all these costs of food and clothing. I think we have the biggest challenge for this youth group in Uganda will be housing and accommodation. The cost of rent is so high.
Yeah.
Whereas many can survive with so little but have some food to eat, and we have comparably more food than many countries around us. So it's easier to have a meal. But the other costs of rent, for instance, accommodation, that's so high. And for many people, actually, it's very easy to say I don't have a job. But the real pressures are around how you can survive. Are you able to afford accommodation, decent accommodation at that? Do you have any social safety structures? Do you have health insurance? For instance, if you fell sick, would you be able to afford medication? Would you afford the doctor's visit? So the cost of living in those looked at in those areas is really high.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't help matters that we do not have all these social safety nets, like health insurance, for instance. The medical bills are always, there is this talk in this town that you're one medical bill away from bankruptcy.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
the cost of living is really high, and even for people with jobs, it's too high for them to meet all these costs.
You, for example, let us now speak with you as a founder of an organization that, for example, deals with addressing opportunities about finding decent employment for the younger people. Where do you think is the policy gap, and how do you think that could be approached? For example, if you want to address the fact that very many people now could afford a doctor's visit when they fall ill, not necessarily relying on, and like you said, self-sustenance, not necessarily relying on giving you a call and maybe saying, okay, I need support for medical services.
So I think we need to first qualify decent employment. What do you consider decent employment? So it would be the kind of work that you do that pays you relatively enough to meet your costs, but also gives you these other advantages like medical insurance, like social security saving, pension, or something you can survive with even when you're out of employment. Because with decent jobs, people will even retire early. So create room for new people to get into employment because they have had all this planning, or there is a pension fund they can retire to, or there is something they saved up for their life after employment. But what it is like right now, we cannot address it with one policy solution. And we cannot say there is one policy gap. Yeah. So there is a gap in government being an enabler of businesses, because government cannot employ everyone. It should create an environment where people in business, where people in the private sector can thrive, can make money, so tax incentives and all these things. But also, we need to look at policies in terms of social safety, so that I have a fallback position in case I am sick. I have something to retire to. I can live decently. I can afford accommodation and all these things. So there can never be one policy to address all these challenges. It must be a mix of a number of policies in health, in private business, and in many of these other areas, so that they lead to one broader thing.
Now that you talk about very many responses to, for example, that in particular, how do you think would, for example, looking at the bridging the gap now and that transition from school maybe to the workspace now, where do you think, for example, is the problem? And very many employers all of a sudden have said that people are not skilled. And I think you even talked about the education, how it is easily accessed, but then get to the crux of that and, for example, speak to that and say.
The thing is, many times we talk about skilling, we talk about hard skills. I can be a carpenter, I can be a builder, but we are in an era of soft skills.
Yeah.
There was a World Economic Forum report that was around 2020. At the World Economic Forum, they were talking about jobs of the future. Yeah. So what do the jobs of the future look like? And we continuously look at them as jobs of the future. But it's here with us today. We have so many people doing gigs, people who are influencers, and they earn from that. So what we would need to think about are soft skills. If someone is a podcaster, for instance, How do they monetize their podcast? And there are guys in this town who are already doing that. Run a podcast and monetize it and make money out of it. So what kind of jobs are we preparing these young people for? We cannot have everyone as a welder. We cannot have everyone as a hairdresser. But what other skills are available for young people? Anyone who has a laptop or a phone can do work with very soft skills, with very limited, or with limited labor, but more of thinking. And so we need to go back to skilling, not for the future, because that's what we are thinking about now. There will be more jobs in the oil sector for welders, for drivers and everything, and we start planning for these jobs today. There are also more jobs that require soft skills today that we can prepare, and someone in 3 months is able to make a living out of.
Let's talk about, for example, the perspective now, or the perspective of, let's say, the perception that the government has peddled for some time, where they say, youth currently have neglected farming. Yet, I am one person who believes that all the factors of production belong to, let's say, certain generation. So how do you think that would work, for example? And most of the time, even these government initiatives, the skilling hubs, they only speak to the traditional ways of, let's say, economic activity, and not the future, like you said.
So look, even farming or generally agriculture, it doesn't happen on the farm. There must be value chains where everyone can, jump onto it. If I'm a marketeer, for instance, I don't have to be on the farm. I have to be somewhere along the chain where the product from the farm is enabled by my skill or my profession to get to the consumer. So to think of agriculture like it happens on the farm alone is in itself wrong. So we need to build these value chains along agriculture and create more jobs on that chain, so that not everyone really is cut out for the farm. People have not just preferences, but also have different skills. And your skill might not apply to the farm. Your skill might be elsewhere, but you contribute to this same product. But also in terms of skilling and the skills required, and why people shun away from agriculture, it's because it doesn't pay. If someone can make more money as a transporter, then they will do the transport. So the farmer gets less from what they produce. If you ask around, the people who produce milk, who produce food everywhere, you sell a watermelon at your farm at 2,000. Someone who transports it, a middleman, a broker, or just a transporter, makes more money off it than you who grew it. So you invest more. And until we address that mismatch of the person at the farm, how much money do they get? If we create markets where they can collectively bring their products and earn more, or if we enable them or connect them to markets or have proper supply chains, then we wouldn't think of agriculture to be productive or to be attractive for especially young people. So we need to make it attractive, and it's only as attractive as it rewards. If it doesn't reward, it's not attractive.
And for a fact, I know you as a tea farmer. You're speaking.
If I must use your podcast to speak out for tea. The tea farmers in this country are facing a problem for over 3 years now. The green leaf prices are too low for farmers to continue in the business. For one, we've decided to cut the tea, let it regenerate, but not spend time picking tea, because when you pick it and you take it to the processing factory, you do not make the money enough to even to pay the guy who picked the tea. So for anyone who can help us, address the challenges within the tea sector, the president has been there and has not given us a solution. But we hope the sector will recover. But for now, we are not doing anything on the farms. You would rather cut down the tea and wait it out rather than spend money on all these fertilizer, labor and everything. You won't make any margins out of it.
And again, I really think that it's also part of the reason that, of course, very many people say that for the young people, they are into quicker gains, but then the price fluctuations around agriculture is also not lucrative to attract the intention of a young person to invest in farming.
Yeah, so there have been generational shifts. What someone who lived through the 60s or the 70s felt was a generation is not what we feel is a generation now. We are in a fast-moving world, and we are in more globalized that if I get an education here today and I'm in the same class with someone who is Kenyan, when we go out, I'm competing with that same guy. So my competition is not exactly what is around me. We are looking out, we are competing with the entire world. And if things are fast moving, the urge for us to catch up with these things is just as high. So we cannot limit ourselves to thinking that, we must be patient with agriculture and everything. No, you will be patient with agriculture, but the world won't be patient with you. People will move on and you'll find yourself still at the lowest ebb of society. The pressure to make quick gains is because someone who is investing in stock markets will make money in a split of a second and walk out and cash out and go. And you won't be patient with tea. When you plant it today, you will get your first green leaf in 3 years. So unless it is that rewarding, you do not expect the people who are in this kind of global competition to be very patient.
And talking about global competition, I don't remember the name of the author of a quote. I think he says there is only one standard, which is the global standard. Talking about the patients, most of the times when you talk to young people, they are really not, I don't want to say comfortable, but they are not satisfied with, for example, where they are at job placement. They want to aim higher, and there is that kind of, I don't want to say they are misunderstood, and then they are shooting higher again. They want to run through this and get to the next position and maybe change career. What is your impression of this generation, for example, and its agility in a way to change the world and be not innovative that fast?
It's a very good attribute if you think about it. So society will not, you don't wait for societies to set pace for you. You set the pace as you move. You realize that if today I'm surviving on $50 in a week and tomorrow it's not enough, I have to do a second job or I have to change something about my earnings. So the pressures young people today face are the drivers of their demands for either salary or for the next placement or anything. So it's not entirely the fact that it is a trait with a certain group of people. It's also how they are being pushed around to be able to make ends meet. But also, ambition should not be, thrown out. You must not look at someone who is ambitious and you tell them, cut it down. Or so lack of ambition is not a virtue. That's something said by Mama Mbabazi when he was told he was jumping the queue. So lack of ambition is not a virtue. So for those who are ambitious and they can meet the level of their ambition with a certain level of skill, you cannot just be ambitious and empty. But if you're ambitious and you have a skill to it, and you have all these qualifiers to it, no one should be limiting, no one should think low of you. So I have no problem with the very young and ambitious folks out there.
Edgar, let's talk about young people and their involvement, let's say, in governance and the civic power, whether they have it or whether they don't. Last year, around mid last year, there was March to Parliament protests against corruption. And I mean, very many other generations jumped on the Gen Zs and said, for example, they said, why are you being dissatisfied with what you have at the time? I mean, I remember a certain minister said that you're still at campus. What is it that, why are you marching when you're still at campus, when you're still in school? Why is it like that, that people tend to look at, let's say, demanding for better as an insult to them, simply because they are more older and, in age, and they really think that they have seen it,
And it's good they're feeling that uncomfortable. I have no kind words for a generation that thinks we should slow the next generation down because we had it at that pace. Look, there is comfort from having just enough. And there is a generation that has been very comfortable with enough.
Yeah.
The lack of transition in this country partly owes to a generation that did not show ambition, that kept low, thinking, we will get there when we get there. But that has been limiting for so many other generations that come after that. So the Gen Z, for instance, must not be as patient because the other generations waited it out.
Yeah.
To think that you can stop someone from aspiring for better is very tragic. So I'm very proud of the people who are able to march.
Yeah.
I have entirely a lot of respect for them, and I would have joined them if I was able to, if I didn't have several restrictions around me. And I hope many more will join this fight.
Let's talk about the differences or the disparities, for example, with how people have been able to access, I don't want to say justice, but to access better governance with regions in Uganda. I have a conversation that has been roaming around the TJ, transitional justice in northern Uganda. How do you make of that?
The various regions of this country have various challenges. They have different challenges, and they are not organized in the same way. Recently, traveling around Western Uganda, I realized the kind of organization around, economic schemes, circles, they're more prominent in the western part of the country than anywhere in the country. It's very symbolic of how the form of organization there is different from the rest of the country, not because of any other, favors or anything, but people being well mobilized amongst themselves to come together and raise capital together and give loans to each other and grow together. this kind of social order does not exist in many other areas, not because it's not possible, but because of other, challenges. Talking of Northern Uganda specifically, I worked there for a while, and I feel it's the best part of this country, but they have had, political and social problems that cannot allow them to be well mobilized. So many years spent in IDPs, disconnected people, split families, and many people lost property. So you're starting from a negative. Even if you want to have a certain kind of social order, you've been destabilized enough that you would need to first regain your own humanity. So the struggles in the different parts of the country are partly because the social ordering favored some, but also because others have the privilege of starting somewhere and not having to start by overcoming odds.
For the listeners, we are going to take a short break, but before we take a short break, Edgar and I will return, and we are going to talk about an intergenerational conversation that we need to have, but also shift to how, for example, the young people have leveraged media and social media tools to demand for what they feel is right in terms of the economical structure and governance structures in the democracy of the country. But you can find us on Podbean, you can find us on YouTube, you can find our snippets on Instagram, you can also find us on TikTok. We'll return shortly.
You are listening to the Policy Digest, a Center for Policy Analysis podcast that explores how African societies are governed and how people and their leaders are shaping the future of their communities. The Center for Policy Analysis is an independent think tank shaping parliamentary democracy, governance, and public policy in Uganda and beyond. Our mission is to shape public policy and strengthen democratic governance by delivering high-quality research, fostering collaboration, and empowering citizens. Our vision is a democratic society with transparent, accountable, and responsive governance systems. What sets CEPA apart? A unique consortium model that integrates expertise from diverse partners for multidisciplinary approaches. We pioneer thought leadership, leveraging tools like artificial intelligence to enhance impact. Through collaborative advocacy, we empower stakeholders to engage with legislative processes, all while combining rigorous research with a deep understanding of Uganda's political economy. Our flagship initiatives include Parliament Watch Uganda, that bridges the gap between the citizens and Parliament. The Policy Digest podcast that explores politics and public affairs across Africa, and the CEPA Convo, our bi-monthly X-Space tackling key public issues. Our work spans parliamentary democracy, human rights, public health, road safety, climate justice, artificial intelligence, and more, including the Africa Regional Conference on Parliament and Legislation. Join CEPA in shaping policies, amplifying voices, and building a democratic future. Visit www.cepa.or.ug to learn more or follow us on social media. The Center for Policy Analysis, a leading public policy think tank.
Welcome back. I'm still here with Edgar. We are trying to put context to whatever is happening in the spheres of media, governance, and livelihood of young people. From what we have discussed so far, you talk about that generational gap in all these spheres, and it cuts across really. How do you think we could cross that gap if there is need or urgency to cross it? What would you...
I don't think we have to do anything about it. It will eventually close itself. So looking at the population divides, the different people in the different age groups, you will realize that one age group will dominate all aspects of our society because of their numbers and because they are a bigger portion of the population. And this is the kind of shift we are facing today. We are a very young country, and young people are not exactly taking up the spaces within the politics, but they're dominating elsewhere. So you're most likely going to meet a young person, and if you're looking for 10 people, you're most likely going to have 6 of them being people below 30, because that's the biggest percentage of our population. So it's a generation that you won't avoid, because if you throw a stone, you're likely to hit one from that generation. So even if there is nothing done, it will outdo itself. And this, the demography of this country shows it very aptly that the very young people are majority, and they will overwhelm the older groups.
Recently, there has been a study that was made by UCC, and I realized that very few of the young people, I'm just forgetting the statistic, do not use radios for, let's say, access to information. Radio, could say radio stations. But then they have now resorted to social media and all these other platforms, the civic tech kind of platforms, for them to engage amongst themselves, but also to engage people in authority. Do you see this as a tool that will, for example, bridge that gap again, more like to have an engagement where the people in authority could understand where these young people are coming from?
So it's basically two things. Radio is so structured and regulated. A radio owner chooses who they host on they choose the way they program, who they host, and who has that platform. With social media, there is no regulation. I open up my TikTok account today, and tomorrow I'm speaking to thousands of people. So it is that kind of feeling that this is my space. I know what to put in my space. I know what to include and what to leave out. I know who to host. I know whose content to share. I know what I relate with. So radio remains the most prominent channel in mainstream media in this country, but you must create content that young people can relate with in order to use that kind of media platform. But there is a lot of freedom with social media. I post what I like. I can use my platform. I can use my X handle to say what I want to say. Anyone else can use their TikTok to do what they want to do. So it's partly because it's not heavily regulated. And I also know people have been prosecuted for their social media content. But largely it's because we don't face these many hurdles. I don't have to seek anyone's permission to put content on my platform.
So, for example, how does, and most of the time I've seen ministers or guys in authorities from MDAs say that some of, let's say, the government programs the youth are not really engaged in when the youth, for example, complain. And their rebuttal has been that, I mean, all these, we put adverts on radios. Do you think that there is a divide in the media that the young people are consuming and the older generations are consuming? For example, with the Emyoga, young people say that whereas we are the largest demographic, we don't have access. Much of this money is going to people who even 50 plus. Yeah. Yet they already have at least some kind of economic stability.
It goes back to project design, program design. If you're designing a project for young people, it must reflect their own reality.
Yeah.
You don't design it from where you are and you think you will implement it and create impact based on what you think, based on where you sit or what you see. So if I'm designing a program for young people, I should know where to find them. I should look out for them. I should go to where they are. And that accounts to a great extent for many of the failures that we see with government programs, not only because they're not being communicated properly to young people, but also because they do not reflect what the young people want. If you're telling me to be able to access Yoga funds, I must first create a group of 10 people.
Yeah.
My idea is my idea. Why must I first sell it to 10 others or 9 others in order for me to access capital for it, to make it functional? So if you're creating these structural or rather limitations in terms of access or the structure of the program, then you're not designing the program with the end user in mind. You're designing the program because you want to have things done in the way you perceive them. But that's not how the intended user is going to think about it or thinks about it. So it accounts for a lot of project failure, but also there must be thinking. You must meet people where they are. You must not throw programs at people. So think about it, make sure it reflects their own reality, and make sure it also meets their passion, their ambition. Yeah.
Edgar, before we conclude, I need you to, you're a migration expert. I need you to get us to an excess with this unemployment, underemployment, but also link it to the immigration bit of it, where we have brain drain. Why do you think, and I mean, the pastures, the other side could be greener, but why isn't, for example, the government insisting on, and I know Rwanda, for example, has a model where they identify key, if, for example, you're innovative enough, they will even have to educate you from, let's say, uni, and then they will have to retain you and be a part of the people that they are seeing that you're driving change. Why is it not the case with us, for example?
What if it is deliberate government policy to export or externalize as many people as we can? You could look at it that way. But maybe to precisely answer your question, we always go where we can make the money, where we can make more money, where we can make a living. So if you're going to be a security guard in this country and you earn 200,000, for example, 200,000 Uganda shillings, but there is an opportunity for you to be a security guard. So this is the same job.
Yeah.
You have an opportunity to be a security guard in Dubai, and they pay you 1.2 million shillings, 6 times more. Would you rather be here or you'd rather be there? And even without factoring in other costs that you'd have to incur, in the long run, you make more money on the outside than being here.
Yeah.
So the calculation then is, it's the same reality. I'm going to be a security guard after all. Would I rather be a security guard here or would rather be a security guard there? So in terms of externalization, I think we've failed to do a policy on externalization as a country. Countries that have policies are reaping more out of it in terms of remittances and even safety of their nationals abroad. But this is how this country functions in many aspects, that the most functional aspects of our economy are either mismanaged or not properly structured. And you can talk about all these government programs that we spend a lot of money on. The structure will... You had even NRM people campaigning and saying, I will make PDM more functional. So why is it not functional? And why do we continue to invest $1 trillion in every budget to a program that is not fully functional? So many times the thinking around the key sectors is either wrong or misguided, and we get the outcomes wrongly. And if we were to properly organize this externalization program, we would reap more, and we would protect our people more. Those who go out there would be in position to do that. So it's one way of dealing with unemployment problem in this country, because we cannot create the number of jobs for these young people we have. But we need to structure it better, have a policy, know who we are externalizing, train them properly, make sure they have the skill they need on the other side, and make sure that when they gain skills on the other side, they're able to transfer them here when they return, because they're not going to be there forever. So have a model that reflects our challenge of unemployment, and this becomes part of the solution, but also model it in a way that we can get something out of it. Not just the money that they send back to their families and everything, but also the skills that they gain out there and how they can be transferable to our context.
Edgar, as we conclude, in your parting shots, really, I want you to speak to any young Ugandan on whatever you feel like, within just a minute. Then we cross the show.
Young Ugandans, don't ever feel limited by what is readily available in our society. In any case, we are a highly indebted, poor country. Aspire to greater things and try to be as networked as you can be. There is a lot of power in networks. It can be local networks or global networks. Try to be as networked as you can be, because the world out there is moving and you shouldn't be left behind.
Thank you so much, Edgar. Our esteemed listeners, viewers, we have come to close of this episode of the Policy Digest. But before we close, I want you to subscribe to our Policy Digest via YouTube. You can like, comment. We'll get that feedback from you. But also visit our website. We publish much more from, let's say, the conversations that we have here. And please continue to engage in some of these conversations. We are here to give you feedback. We are here to welcome your feedback on what you think, especially with what we are discussing with our guests. Thank you once again for listening to us. I guess you'll see me when I see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Policy Digest podcast, the Center for Policy Analysis podcast that is profiling African ideas and people that are shaping the future of their communities. Subscribe to all our platforms on YouTube and Podbean.